The July 9th meeting of the East Penn School District Board of Directors order. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is request to address the board. I have four. First is William Bassett of Kunji on the topic of homophobia.
Hello, my name is William Bassett. I'm going to be a senior at Emmaus High School next year, and I am gay. So I've come in today to address the issue being posed by students, parents, and members of the community alike about videos shown during the morning announcements in the month of April. I did not attend the previous meetings, but I read all of the morning call articles regarding them, and it is clear that many remarks made by concerned citizens are simply invalid faux pas blown out of proportion to help aid their so-called cause. It was stated by community member Michelle Blackbroth, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, that we should, quote, call out this behavior for what it truly is, social bullying at the highest level, end quote. When I read this remark, at first I kind of laughed a little, but realized how naive it was. Showing videos that make people aware of what LGBTQ+ students feel like when they are asked questions that could be biased, or showing clips of gay and lesbian couples getting married is not bullying. The constant defiling of students that are a part of the LGBTQ+ community, in some cases to the point of suicide, that is bullying to the highest level. As a gay kid, I actually agree with some of the points made that pushing the homosexual agenda on students, or anyone for that matter, should not be allowed. That should not be done as a gay person. And the videos did not actually promote that. The videos were shown in accordance with the Day of Silence, the day created to highlight the silencing of LGBTQ+ students because they feel so much contempt. They were merely informative. If you are in opposition of these videos, you are essentially supporting the bullying of children, and children who already feel such a strong social animosity towards them. Also, to the parents of the children who support the AFA because they believe their child is being attacked for being heterosexual, I would like to inform you that the American Family Association is a registered anti-LGBTQ+ group, and I promise you that they do not care about your child. They only wish to degrade and demoralize people like myself. To conclude, Emmaus High School is a community that supports all students no matter their race or sexual orientation, and the videos shown were only shown to open the eyes of those who are not as accepting as others. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Reverend Andrew Damick. Thank you for indicating your name. From Emmaus on video shown on April 27th.
Good evening. My name is Father Andrew Damick. I live here in Emmaus, and I'm also the pastor of St. Paul Orthodox Church here in Emmaus. I read with great interest the discussions that took place, I know especially at the last meeting of the school board, and I wanted to address this question that was just discussed by the gentleman who spoke before me. First, it was interesting, I haven't heard the Pledge of Allegiance in a long time because I haven't been in school for a long time, but I noted at the end was that we say that we believe in liberty and justice for all. And of course, one of the liberties that is held the most dear since the founding of this country is the liberty of religion and also of conscience. And as such, it is part of our heritage as Americans that since we have a say in how our communities are governed, including our schools, that we should be able to make informed choices about what our children are going to be shown as part of their curricula, as part of the public activity of the school. So first I want to begin by saying that I believe very much that every single person should be treated with dignity and with respect and not be bullied for any reason, and for any reason whatsoever. At the same time, I also believe that anything that is shown publicly to the school should be subject to parental notification. I know that the school's response to the question of having the specific videos that were shown released was to say, well, this is student work and we don't release student work to the public, at request. But my understanding is that the presentation was not simply someone giving a presentation in a class or turning in a piece of homework, but rather was a very public broadcast to the entire school. So that places it outside of this question of simply private work being done by a particular student. I hope that's, that point is made clear. In conclusion, I want to again emphasize that I believe that no one should be bullied for any reason, no matter what their beliefs, their feelings, what they do, any of that. But at the same time, parents who believe in liberty and justice for all, especially liberty of conscience and of the liberty to teach our children what we believe to be right and wrong, we should be able to access whatever it is being taught in our schools, and especially touches on questions of our day, particularly ones that have, for many of us, a moral dimension. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Next up is Lynn Donchus from Emmaus on videotape.
Good evening, board members, and thank you for the opportunity to redress my grievance. I cannot tell you how infuriated I was when I came home from my trip, read in the paper about an issue that arose while I was gone, and not have access to a video recording of a couple of school board meetings that took place during my time away. There have been multiple requests from the public to provide video recordings of the meetings. The problem is, I believe, you are making the issue bigger than it is. Simply videotaping is getting jumbled with paperless meetings and board docs and which computers you will receive and probably other issues I'm not aware of. I'm actually starting to think maybe you don't want the residents to see the meetings. Perhaps you want them to be inconvenienced and have to come in person to the meetings. But people do have legitimate reasons for not attending every meeting. I believe you are the last government entity standing in the East Penn School District when it comes to providing video recordings of the meetings. Reach out to any numbers of the boroughs, the townships, maybe even other school districts to see how they surmounted what appears to be such a tough hurdle. I can tell you, videotaping is simple. Get someone from the IT department or the video class or the video club or any of the staff that attend these meetings every time, have them set up a camera in the back of the room or the side of the room. I've seen it done at chorus, I've seen it done at musical events. You can pay $700 for a little camera with a built-in mic. Upload the video to a YouTube, maybe put a copy on the district website, and posted video recordings of the meetings. It's simple to do. It's a simple request. It's been made many times. Please, just get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. John Donchus is next. He's also from Emmaus. Topic is STEM.
Hello, board. I also was gone for last month, missed a lot of the stuff. Welcome our new superintendent. I'm very happy to see that, actually, and board members. My topic would be similar to that, but in the sense of it sounds like something that happened before. Some of you might not have been here, some were. The books for electric Kool-Aid acid test, where parents did the same thing, came up, requested that they be taken off the 8th grade summer reading list, required summer reading list. And that happened. It took a lot, but what happened with the administration and the board, some of the board members, spun that to where book banning. And of course, the papers brought that up, everything's going on, yeah, you're a bunch of book banners. No. Parents requested you take highly age inappropriate literature out and put it to the age appropriate. It happened. But you know what it took? It took another superintendent to call the previous superintendent and say, you read it over a public loudspeaker system. They'd be locked up if they did. Problem gone. So listen to the people. This is the same thing. To me, parents are asking again, look, we don't know what's going on here. My kids are coming back. They're not feeling good, there's something wrong, whatever, you know, you have to pry it out, you find out what's going on. And this is something that the school district did, just did. Now I'm hearing, oh, it's a student project. Okay, you mean that no administrators, no teachers, no adults had any input on this thing? I find that highly hard to believe. And if you didn't, the students are obviously running the school. You know, so I want to know right now, I almost demand it, I wish the parents and everybody else would. You sit up there like I'd say, stupid stumps. You look at us, no response, whatever. People want to know what's going on. I'd like to ask every one of the school board members, do you understand what the people and parents are asking for? They want to have parental rights. They have the right legally, and ask your solicitor, to know what's going on. And when they find something out that bothers them, they come here. That takes a lot for a lot of people to do. Come up here and talk out in public like this. So they want to know what's going on, and they're requesting just to get the links to these videos. From what I read in the paper, they said, I was gone, I come back, you read all this stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, and they get turned down? That sounds ridiculous to me. Absolutely absurd, actually. So now, my question is, do you understand that from what I hear to parents, this is a parental rights issue. This isn't a homophobia issue that you have turned it into. I could care less what the topic is. It could have been Second Amendment stuff, which I'd probably go for. If you did the same thing there and people came up and were complaining about it, they have the exact right to do that. And that shouldn't happen either. It's a curriculum at that point, and they have the right to know what the curriculum is. This begging forgiveness afterwards, or spinning it to where, oh, you're a homophobe, just because the topic happened to be LGBT or whatever else there is. I could care less about that. Maybe most of those people could too. They want to know what their kids are getting into before it happens. That's all. Do you understand that question? I'd like a response from everyone. Do you understand that it's a parental rights thing, not a homophobia thing?
Excuse me, that's not appropriate. We don't have that.
Yeah, you don't do it, but I want to have them say this so that I know you understand. You're the one spinning this as a homophobia thing, a book burning thing. That's got to stop. That's what I'm saying. And I think that all these parents have the right to know where you stand on that. They're asking for a parental right, not a homophobia, gay rights, whatever it is. Just that's the topic that came up. Oh, this is wonderful. We can spin this one to it too. Stop the spin. Just listen to the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Next up is Michelle Blackborough from Allentown on parental rights.
As a parent, I came here to speak with you on June 11th to discuss how you've been actively blocking and denying Pennsylvania law as it relates to parental rights. And I feel the need to speak again tonight to stand up to these activist bullying tactics. In April, you allowed 5 days access to the entire student body at Emmaus High School to promote GLSEN's agenda of normalizing and promoting alternative lifestyles. You have attempted to defend and cover this up by saying that this was an anti-bullying project somehow assigned to the GSA club and granted access to the school television network to show videos that, let's be clear, the facts have established were not student produced. They were simply chosen from YouTube and a CBS video link openly available on the internet and streamed into the classrooms at the end of second period each day over the school television network. The statistics shared by the principal over the school-wide intercom system were GLSEN-generated statistics. GLSEN is the nation's largest homosexual advocacy group focused on promoting same-sex sexual activity and gender confusion, and it is established as a political activist organization. That is a fact. It is factually clear that this entire situation was systematically planned and executed with both teacher involvement and approval. As parents, we have a right to know, to ask questions about what you are teaching our children during the school day. We expect honest and open communication. From April to May to June, and now it is July. What are you trying to hide from parents in this school district that you keep blocking this so adamantly? At the June 25th board meeting, it is clearly apparent that the superintendent, the solicitor, and several activist board members have tried to paint me as a homophobic, hateful bully. Let's lay out the facts. When I asked to see those videos that were shown to almost 2,800 minor children without any communication to parents that clearly promoted and celebrated alternative lifestyles, I was told that the solicitor had decreed that I, as a parent and a taxpayer in this district, have no right to see or review these videos. That is a right guaranteed to all parents by Pennsylvania state law. Nonetheless, Emmaus High School minors who felt bullied by these videos were swept aside and ignored by each and every one of you. I appealed and appealed and appealed and appealed. Blocked, met with silence, no answers. April, May, June, July. Still, no concern for these students. First, not communicating with parents was a mistake. Second, trying to hide what you showed was a mistake. Third, painting parents who dare to ask what you are doing as haters is unethical. And fourth, trying to bully me with your narrative that somehow, as a married heterosexual Christian parent, I am by definition a hater in your eyes. You don't even know me. Where is your understanding and tolerance? With the way that I have been treated and all of the anger, the name calling, the threats that have been hurled at me because of you inciting this narrative, I can't even listen to you talk about your platform of understanding and tolerance. The June 11th meeting was a very respectful crowd. There were no incidents heard in that room by people who were sitting in the back of the room that night. After the meeting, the parents, myself included, who spoke out, were approached by Emmaus High School faculty trying to discredit us as liars and claiming that we were making all of this up and that these videos had never happened. It's the standard he said, she said, teacher's word versus parents' word. The superintendent settled it by stating that not only did these videos happen at Emmaus High School in April, but they have been happening for years here at Emmaus High School. At the June 25th meeting, both he and several of your school board members openly acknowledged support for this. You pushed back at parents' requests and appeals, dismissing the parental rights of every parent and guardian in this district, and so intricately spun a new narrative trying to make this about hate instead of parental rights. At this meeting, the audience was vastly different, as you know. Angry and fixated on labeling people who were not supportive of their views as haters and hate groups. Your blanket response to 4 months of not answering my questions is, we will not allow hate into this community. What does that have to do with my parental right to see what was shown to the entire student body in April for 5 days? What does that have to do with the Open Records Office refusing to provide answers to taxpayers' questions? It is set up as a legal channel available to all taxpayers in the district. Since when are those who support marriage and family, who support constitutional protection of religious liberty, defined as a hate group? I don't agree with bullying anyone for any reason. And that's why I'm speaking out tonight.
Can you wrap it up?
Yep. The real problem here isn't kids bullying kids. It's adults pushing their agendas through kids and creating a top-down bullying situation in our schools, particularly here in the high school. I thank God for every person in this country who sees what is going on and is speaking out on behalf of our children and our parental rights. Please stop playing games with parents in this school district who have a right to know and see what you are showing our children. Stop bullying our children and pushing your political and social agendas in our schools. Thank you.
I have next Aiden Levinson from Zionsville on LGBT videos in April.
Thank you for allowing me to address the board this evening. I just want to clear some stuff up. There was a lot of ranting going on over here. I want to clarify that the videos, as said by multiple people before, were not part of classroom instruction. They were part of the morning announcements program, which is a student project. And this misconception that information about the videos wasn't given out. The titles were given. They said they were on YouTube. You can look them up. They come right up. I just did it on my phone just now. It's on the morning call. Go ahead. And I'd like to see some examples of the board members saying that people speaking earlier were liars, because I haven't personally seen that myself. Thank you very much.
Next up is approval of minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a presentation.
Yes, thank you. For the past year, East Penn has engaged in a partnership with communities and schools. And through this partnership, we've been able to provide targeted interventions to address student needs. And tonight, you'll learn more about how our students have benefited from those services delivered by communities and schools. And so I'd like to first introduce Dr. McCarrick, who will lead the presentation. Good evening, everyone. First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present the update on communities and schools that have been in place at Emmaus High School during the 2017-18 school year. With me this evening, I have Tammy Patterson, who is the CIS site coordinator at Emmaus High School, Wendy Seifert, who is the director of operations for communities and schools, and Jen Carolla, who is the department chair at Emmaus High School for the counseling department, and she also acts in the role as a guidance counselor. First, I cannot express my appreciation and my gratitude to the school board for supporting communities and school services within the East Penn School District. As you'll hear in a few minutes, Communities and Schools has fulfilled their mission statement at Emmaus High School, and that was to surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. That mission statement is truly a testament to the 2018 CIS graduation ceremony that I attended at Muhlenberg College, where I had the privilege of presenting certificates of accomplishment to our 12th grade students who participated in CIS services and would soon be graduating from Emmaus High School on June 10, 2018. I was surrounded by parents after the ceremony who thanked me and told me how much the program had benefited their child. Since we have a few new board members, I wanted to present the history behind why we are contracting with communities and schools. The timeline is this. In August of 2015, the Student Services Department implemented an online crisis referral system. November 2015, we surveyed all of the principals, K-12, on what current services were in place within their school buildings. In December of 2015, the decision was made to develop a behavior support subcommittee, and I actually chaired that committee. We wanted to evaluate the current level of supports within the district and also evaluate the needs within East Penn School District. In January of 2016, the subcommittee was formed, and it was originated due to the volume of crisis that we were experiencing in the district and the interventions that we had to provide district-wide. We needed to address these challenges with the increase in our mental health needs. From February 2016 until January 2017, the committee convened, and on January 9, 2017, I presented the work of the subcommittee, which encompassed tracking student referrals for visits to the counseling offices, K through 12, in all of the schools. And the following themes emerged with regard to areas of concern: self-harm, anger, depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation, neglect and abuse, gender identification, and grief and loss. The most alarming piece of data was that during the 15-16 school year, the district had 97 incidents of students that presented with suicidal ideation. Our behavioral support subcommittee then vetted different agencies and supports, and we conducted site visits to schools that had services in place, and we recommended communities in schools in January of 2017. On January 23rd, CIS representatives presented to the board, and a contract was approved in the spring of 2017 to place behavior supports in Emmaus High School for the 17-18 school year. One of my commitments to the board at that time was to really evaluate our mental health placement costs. And so just to give you a historical perspective, in 2015-16, the costs were $167,223. In 17-18, $194,075. And this past school year, our costs were $141,218. So we did see a decrease in those costs by $52,857. And I attribute some of that reduction to the implementation of the CIS supports. So I am going to now introduce Jen Corolla and also Tammy Patterson, and they'll present our findings for this school year.
To just start off with a basic overview of who Communities in Schools is. Dr. Carrick did cover it quite a bit, but just to give you an idea of our background, we are a national nonprofit agency serving almost 1.5 million students annually. We're in 26 states throughout the country, and traditionally our role is dropout prevention in inner cities. That's kind of how it all started. However, as the affiliate, the Lehigh Valley affiliate has expanded and developed relationships with other school districts, such as Easton, such as Whitehall, we are really beginning to adapt our services to adjust to whatever the obstacles are in those school districts where the demographics and the obstacles are a little different than what they would be in the traditional inner city school. And as Dr. Carrick had said, our mission statement is to surround students with a community of support, empowering them to stay in school and achieve in life. So we operate on a 5 basics philosophy, and as you can see, it's very simple that every student needs and deserves a one-on-one relationship with a caring adult, a safe place to learn and grow, a healthy start and a healthy future, a marketable skill to use upon graduation, and a chance to give back to their peers and their community. So this is our national CIS model, and I just wanted to familiarize you a little bit with this because I will be referring to some of the terms on this slide and some of the other slides. So we start off at the top, our CIS affiliates. It starts at the national level. We have a national office in Washington, D.C., and then there are state affiliates throughout the states where we provide our services. Then from there are the site coordinators, which are people like me who are here actually placed in the schools. In many schools there's a site coordinator and also what we call student support specialists, and together they act as a team in particular schools. And then from there, we have our collaborative or our community partners, and they are the agencies that we work with to bring services into the school. Examples would be Valley Youth House, Crime Victims Council, Karen Foundation, Center for Humanistic Change. So those are just some examples of the partners that we use. So we come into the school like we did in, I believe it was August last year that we started. We do a needs assessment, and we do a survey. Generally it's students, case managed students, parents, and also staff and faculty. And we kind of get an idea of what the needs are of the school. And it could be things such as school climate, it could be attendance, it could be whatever the issues are, we address them. Then we begin to plan. And I come up with what we call a school support plan. And that is a very detailed description of the services that will be provided and the programs that will be facilitated throughout that year. Then integrated student supports, that's basically just the work that I do. That's all of the services throughout the year. If you can see there, the blue, the red, and the green, it says Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. So I just want to explain that a little bit. Tier 1 are our school-wide services. Part of the needs assessment is to determine what needs on a school-wide basis in addition to the case managed students and their needs. So we do activities or events to address the school-wide needs. Then for Tier 2, we do, it's the targeted programs such as support groups that we have either I facilitate or we have an outside agency facilitate. And that is basically Tier 2, it's a group of students with a similar need. And we put them together and provide services that way. And then Tier 3 is where I spend most of my time. That's case managing students that are referred to me through the counseling office. I work with them generally on a weekly basis. And then from there, we monitor and adjust. We monitor by having quarterly reports that I do. We have data that we, that we look at to see are our services being effective. We adjust if needed, and then we evaluate from there, and then that process will start again the following year.
So reasons that we initially partnered with communities and schools, and Dr. Kakara did a nice job reminding everybody that in the 2015-16 year, these were the main mental health concerns that we were faced with our students. And obviously each of these concerns really impedes student success within the classroom. What you'll see as you look at the data from this past school year, the 2017-18 school year, I have data up here representative of our mental health crisis log. This is strictly for the high school, and probably coming as no big surprise to most people. Again, we're still seeing a prevalence of anxiety in our students, family issues, depression, and lagging not so far behind, unfortunately, again, is that suicide ideation. This is further confirmation that we continue to need additional mental health services, both at the high school level and across districts. We are taking great measures to make sure that we're tracking data as accurately as we can. We are tracking the amount of time that we're spending with students, the presenting concerns that they have, and we're excited about the fact that in this coming school year, we'll be able to offer the tracking of this data to this degree in every counseling office within the district. So that includes elementary and middle school levels as well as at the high school. I do want to make note on this graph here that this indicates not necessarily the number of instances each thing occurred, each concern occurred, but we need to keep in mind that oftentimes concerns are comorbid with one another. So a student presenting with suicide ideation might also present with family issues or depression. So these are the number of times that these instances have been reported by students. We had the student data from the mental health crisis log. As Tammy indicated, we did a needs assessment in the fall, which really brought to light what our faculty and staff viewed our main needs or concerns in the building. What you will see is that the faculty and staff very strongly agree that we do a very nice job of providing academic supports for students. Faculty and staff believe that there are multiple opportunities for parents to be engaged within the school community. And what we do relatively well also was offer non-academic programs to help students grow. So case managing students, providing extracurricular activities, community service type opportunities. But where we were lagging behind was supports for school attendance as well as social emotional learning opportunities. So those social emotional learning opportunities would include things like social skills groups for students, anger management groups for students, mindfulness lessons. Some free responses from our faculty indicated that they felt very strongly that our students needed more help learning how to manage stress and anxiety. Our faculty was asking for more assistance in bringing in social emotional learning into the classroom, how to work with students that are suffering from different mental health concerns and helping to remove those barriers within the classroom so that they can get educationally what they need. So with the data of what our student needs were and with the needs assessment from our faculty and staff, we sat down with what we termed the CIS core team. And this core team was established in 2017, September of 2017 this year. There was a representative group of building administration, district administration, we had our high school psychologist, we had Wendy, who's the director of operations of communities and schools in Lehigh Valley, Tammy sat on it, myself, and a couple of other counselors. This is a group that met monthly throughout the duration of the school year. And we were first tasked with really coming up with this referral process and how we were going to identify students who would be good fits for Tammy to take on her caseload at the start of the school year. So in developing the process of identifying referring students to communities and schools, what we did was we looked at students who required the most intensive level of support within the school environment. These students come from referrals either from the school counselor or the school psychologist in consultation with the EHS administrator that usually oversees that grade level. Obviously, parent permission is necessary to facilitate this case managed situation. So either initiation is made by the school counselor to a parent to obtain that parental permission, or as we make the referral to Tammy, she makes the direct contact with the parent. Tammy attempts to get the parental consent 3 to 4 times before closing the case, and she'll talk a little bit about what her return rate was like in a few slides. In addition to the referral process, as we got further into the school year, another big item on our agenda monthly was to really monitor the progress of the case managed students. We did this on a monthly basis as well as through quarterly reports, which Tammy as a CIS site coordinator provided our core team. And it was very much a collaborative effort on identifying and implementing the integrated supports for the building. So I really want to stress that this was a team effort, that CIS listened to what our needs were, we listened to what data they were looking at, and then we came up with these integrated supports and different levels of intervention. And throughout the year, we again just continue to evaluate the procedures and the supports and adjust as necessary.
So, in the needs assessment, what was our goals that were determined from the needs assessment on a tier 1 level, if you remember that school-wide, was to decrease mental health related absences, improve the social, emotional, and mental health of students, and to decrease the number of repeated behavior infractions resulting in either in-school or out-of-school suspensions. Some of the activities that we had geared towards tier 1, there were 4 of them throughout the course of the year. In September is Suicide Prevention Month, and we did suicide prevention cards that were handed out to each of the homeroom teachers, and they then were given out to every single student, and it had information on it. If you're in crisis, these are the numbers. There were different resources on there for students to refer to. It was a little card that they could keep in their wallet or in their book bag for reference, either for themselves or for a friend if ever need be. We had an after-school yoga class. We had an outside community partner come in and do yoga with students. That ran for about 10 weeks. We did that, and then in May, for Mental Health Awareness Month, we did some more informational cards and informational announcements, and it was Know the Signs, and it was information about signs pointing to mental health concerns. Also in May, then we had an evening presentation by the Karen Foundation, and it's called PrEP. Some of you may be familiar with that. It's Prevention Resources and Education for Parents, and it is a general presentation that they do regarding the drug trends among teens. However, with the concern with the rise in vaping recently, we asked them to do a focus on vaping. So they gave some really good informational stuff about vaping and how to speak to teens about it, what to look for. And that was open to the high school and the middle school parents as well. So these are just some of my other roles and responsibilities as the site coordinator, in addition to facilitating the Tier 1 services. For Tier 2, which are the groups, the support groups, I would coordinate the community partners, have them come in, like I said, to run some of the groups as part of our Tier 2 services. Then for Tier 3 is mainly my one-on-one counseling with case managed students that I do, as I said, generally on a weekly basis. Depending on the needs of the student, which is really determined at the time when I first meet with the student, and we kind of get a feel for what their needs may be. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. I obviously collaborate with the counseling office, staff, faculty, parents. I do meetings with parents, whether it's face-to-face at the school, emails, phone calls, home visits as needed. And I attend meetings related to all of my case managed students. If it's an IEP meeting, a truancy meeting, a discipline meeting, whatever it might be, I try to get involved and be there as a support and as further information about the student at any of those meetings that I'm able to. In addition to that, I do serve as a member of the SAP team, the Student Assistance Program. And then I'm also responsible for documenting and reporting on all of the data on the students. We measure their progress, and I will talk about that a little further. So my caseload for 2017-2018, I've had a total of 100 referrals from the counselors and or the school psychologist. Out of that 100, at some point throughout the year, I had 26 students that either transferred out of the district or maybe went to cyber school, whatever, various reasons that they transferred and they were no longer in the school for me to provide the services to them. I had 3 refusals of services. That was either by a student and or a parent. And then 10 unsuccessful attempts. And what that means is, as Jen referred to, that I attempted 3 or 4 times to reach out to a parent either by phone, leaving a voicemail, emailing, whatever way that I could do that. And then after 3 or 4 times, I got no response, and they kind of just get put off on the back burner at that point to be able to free up that space for other students. But I do keep them in a file in case the student is again on the radar at some point, and I have that referral there. We did begin a wait list in November, which was actually very, very early for us to start that. I do have about, generally speaking, a caseload of about 60 students at any given time. But as you can imagine, it's kind of like a revolving door where I'm getting referrals throughout the year, and some are leaving, some are just coming in. So generally, I can do about 60 at a time. So we have a wait list at this point of 11 students on the wait list, and throughout the course of the year, 15 students were actually moved off of the wait list and onto my current caseload.
And I think it's important to note with the wait list that because we went to wait list so early, that really speaks volumes about the community support for the program. Parents were very excited for the opportunity to have this additional layer of support for their students. So what you will note is very few families refused services, which caused us to go to a wait list, which was the earliest wait list within the Lehigh Valley of the schools that community schools is in. The other thing I want to mention is too, just because a student is on the wait list, that certainly doesn't mean that they cannot receive services within our office. So any student that comes, we always triage them based on what their presenting concerns are. If a risk assessment needs to be done because they're at the level of suicide ideation or anything of that serious nature, we bring in a school psychologist, and that's done in tandem with the school counselor, or if it is a case managed student, in tandem with Tammy as the site coordinator. We also are able to offer some of the waitlist students, as well as other students, some tier 2 level support, so they can participate in groups. So even if they're not as closely monitored by Tammy, they can participate in groups while they're on the wait list, as well as a periodic check-in maybe once a month for those students.
So these are the tier 2 services that were provided this year, the groups that we ran. We had an anxiety management / coping skills group that was facilitated by the Center for Humanistic Change. That was once a week during Flex Block. It ran for 2 marking periods. I facilitated an anger management group. I also facilitated a lunch bunch social skills group, which I had some students come and eat lunch with me on Fridays to work on social skills. And we did attempt a grief group. We didn't have the student interest that we had hoped to have on that, but we are planning on trying that again for this upcoming school year, because we do believe that it would really be a beneficial service to the students. And this is just some additional demographics of our case managed students. Out of the 100, you'll see that 67 were regular education, 18 were learning support, 15 emotional support. And in addition to that, I did have some students that before they were referred to CIS, they were hospitalized or in an alternative placement. And out of those, 10 of them were regular education and 14 of them were special education students. This is my end of year results. We do quarterly results, and then this is our final result for the year. I would just like to kind of explain this to you so you kind of understand what you're looking at here. The goal on the left-hand side over here, we are required on a national level to have a student have at least one, if not more, either an academic goal, an attendance goal, or a school behavior goal. Some have just one, Many have all three, depending on what, the needs of that student are. And then in addition to that, we also focus on their social and emotional learning. And we do that based on the needs assessment and the needs of the case-managed students. So we measure that by what we call, I believe it's a social, emotional, academic development assessment, if I remember. We call it the SEED assessment. And in the middle column there, like it'll say here for academics, 52 students were assigned an academic goal. We only measure students that were 40, that I case managed for 45 days or more, so equivalent to one working period. So you'll see here that the 45 students, when you look at the percentage, that's based on the 45 students, the 27 students, the 10 students.
So some of the other feedback that we received from stakeholders, we're talking about students, parents, faculty. You'll see that we took some excerpts from some statements that were given to us. And I'll give you a few seconds to look those over, but I do just want to highlight the center one because I think that that's really indicative of what we're trying to share with all of you up here. That this parent really believes, or referred to it as a triangle of reliable support between communities and schools, the school psychologist, and the school counselor. It really is hands down a team approach, all hands on deck to help our most at-risk students within the building. And because Tammy is right in our counseling suite, we are interacting with her on a day-to-day basis constantly to make sure that all parties involved in that student's lives are up to date and in the know about what's going on and how we can best support students. So I'll just give just a few seconds if you want to read through some of those quotes. So looking ahead to the 2018-19 school year, as indicated earlier in the presentation, we are at full capacity for caseload of students beginning the 2018-19 academic year. This is due to continuation of services for students that have been on Tammy's caseload the previous year, as well as new ninth grade student referrals. So at the end of the academic year, what we did was Tammy sat down at the table, myself, our two ninth grade counselors, our high school psychologists, both middle school psychologists, as well as the 8th grade counselors to discuss transition needs of our students coming up to the high school next year. And through a collaborative effort, we identified students that we felt were most in need of that additional support. Keeping in mind that any transition can be anxiety-producing to any student, and when you add in layers of mental health on top of that transition, it could be grounds for a disaster. So we really wanted to put all the supports in place that we could to help streamline that transition process for those high-risk students. Tammy is going to work throughout the summer to obtain parent consent. Parent consent will need to be obtained either from students who were on her caseload last year. So she will work to make parent contact. She'll also need input from parents regarding the mental health needs of their students. And we hope to have all consents in place prior to the start of the academic year so they won't be missing a beat. The first day of school, she can begin working with all the students on her caseload. In addition, moving forward, some of the things we'd really like to tackle next year as a core team and through CIS, we would like to provide additional supports for our students in the EHS cyber program, also known as VESPA. What we've noticed from the data is that many of our students who enter the cyber program are due to mental health concerns, whether it's school avoidance or anxiety. So we'd like to put some things in place for the end goal ultimately would be to reintegrate those students back into the building. But if that does not happen, we at least want them to be aware that there are resources available to help them. They are still East Penn students, they are still Emmaus High School students, regardless of whether they're being educated within the building or at home through our cyber program. We'll continue to offer groups. Both Tammy will run groups as well as outside agencies that she partners with. We also want to look at in-school suspension and provide some additional supports there to hopefully decrease the disciplinary infractions from repeat offenders. We'll continue to offer parent programs to address substance abuse and vaping, as well as plans to host a school-wide assembly relating to mental health towards the beginning of next school year. And one of the larger projects that Tammy and I just began working on most recently is we would really like to organize a mental health symposium for the school district. So our plan right now is to hopefully offer something in the spring of 2019 to parents, giving parents an option to come hear from experts in the community about different things of mental health, substance abuse, and really have them walk out of these sessions with some type of toolkit that they can use to better communicate with their students, better identify the signs or the warning symptoms. And so those plans are underway to hopefully bring that to the district in the spring, like I said, of 2019. So in conclusion, the main point that I just really want to focus on is the fact that this partnership, and I don't use that term lightly, it really truly has been a partnership of all parties at the high school level and through communities and schools. Whether it was a team approach to support, again, the most intensive need students at the high school level. We have a continued need to continue the service and the partnership with communities and schools, and the mental health, as we saw in the crisis log, is not decreasing. And there's also a need for additional support services to students at all levels in the district. So that certainly means middle level, and it also means elementary level. One of the things we really want to keep in mind is that interventions at earlier ages helps to decrease the emotional and behavioral problems. So when we provide supports like mental health supports, we're actually removing barriers to students' learning. So the earlier we can exercise those interventions with students, and we can allow them to learn and grow in an academic environment because we're meeting their social and emotional needs, the more successful that hopefully that sets them up to be by the time they enter middle school or high school and then beyond. So I just want to extend my gratitude and on behalf of all of my colleagues, as Dr. Kakar said, for the approval of communities and schools, this partnership this year. And my greatest hope is that as we move forward, we can continue to expand not only at the high school level, but more specifically now at the middle level, and then hopefully eventually at the elementary level, because the concerns exist district-wide. But thank you again.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
Quick question. First of all, thank you so much for putting this all together. I know it was a lot of hard work for you to pull that together, and it's certainly a true need that our kids really desperately need. Quick question I had was, you talked about the cyclical process of going from the needs assessment to the evaluation back again. How long does that typically take to go through one full cycle? Is that quarterly or full calendar year or school year, or?
The needs assessment is done, usually it's done at the end of a school year for the next year,
Okay.
and works on throughout the summer. Because we were just coming in last year, it kind of was a little bit later. It was, I believe, August that we did it in August. But then from that point, then once the needs assessment and the school support plan is done, then that goes throughout the school year, and then it will start over again the following year. We'll do another needs assessment to see are the needs the same, have they changed at that point. So it's a whole year.
So is it safe to assume then that a year from now we'll get a chance to look at some of that good data and see how well we've been doing with some of the pieces we've had in place and how what we did this year worked?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Every year it would be the same process.
Great, thank you.
Yes, thank you. You're doing really great work, and I'm glad to see some progress from the presentation last year, where you really, Ms. Corolla talked about the sort of need that we have in the school. I have a couple of questions, one of which I guess I'll start where you ended with early intervention, and you talked a lot about, and it seems reasonable to me, right, that early intervention is actually more effective, it's more cost effective, and so forth. Why then are we only tracking the crisis log at the high school and not at the other levels?
The crisis log is actually district-wide at this point, so the data that I shared with you this evening was strictly related to the high school, but the mental health log is district-wide. What we're going to do in instituting the iPads is track more closely not just those instances logged within the crisis log, but also all other visits to the counseling office. So we're able to triage students, and it may not escalate to a point of putting them on the crisis log, but we're looking for a little bit of deeper data through those visits to the counseling office throughout the district.
So I guess I don't understand when you first talked about the crisis log, this is slide 6. I guess I don't think you said this, but I got the sense that the reason we had this is because this is the data you had. But it sounds like actually you have more data than this at all levels, but you chose to show us the high school. What's so special about the high school that warrants its own graph and not the crisis log at the other levels?
I think the purpose, in our minds, the purpose of this presentation this evening was just as a progress update for our work with communities and schools in the partnership. So that's the data that we chose to focus on. But the data does exist at the middle school level. But since we have nobody in the middle school and communities and schools right now, that's the only reason why we didn't choose to show that.
I see. So actually communities and schools right now is only working with high school students?
Correct.
Okay.
So the original recommendation, I believe, from the subcommittee was to place the communities and schools site coordinator at the high school level and then 2 at the middle level. But at this point in time, we've only contracted with 1 site coordinator at the high school.
Good. All right. That helps me a bit. Sticking with the crisis log data, I mean, you had said that these are numbers by incident type and not actual individual students. What is the total number of students represented at least once on this?
So the total number of students on the crisis log is 244 right now.
Okay.
At the high school level.
Great. Okay, so a couple of times, I know one of the big initiatives was with the parent group was about vaping, and then vaping came up as a future thing that you wanted to sort of tackle. Is the issue of vaping in the schools related to the mental health concerns that you've listed on page 5?
I don't know. I think that the vaping could be a gateway into other things. So when you're talking about addiction and substance abuse and so forth, that can be comorbid with mental health concerns. So I think that's why we want to continue to do, sometimes, let me backtrack, sometimes students self-medicate when they're experiencing mental health concerns. And that self-medication can certainly come from vaping or drug use or alcohol. And so therefore we just want to educate on what the dangers are, and we want parents to be aware of, again, when we talk about signs and symptoms to look for and to be knowledgeable about, we want to educate parents for the whole student, not just the mental health concerns that I think people are a little bit more familiar with as far as like depression or anxiety.
So is it your view that by tackling the issue of vaping, we're actually going to help deal with suicide ideation and depression? I'm just looking at the list on page 5.
No, so I don't know that it's a direct correlation. I think what our purpose behind that was is to educate parents in the community and provide resources for parents. And part of this partnership is really that resource piece and providing additional services and resources to parents and students in the community. And so it was just under the umbrella of some of the work that communities and schools has been doing.
No, that's okay. I was just going to add to that as well that one of our goals was to reduce the disciplinary infractions. So there was a correlation between vaping and the disciplinary referrals. So it kind of speaks to that in that way, that if we can keep the vaping down, there would be less disciplinary. Yeah.
Okay. There were a number of programs that you listed here which sounded quite interesting and useful. But they also seemed, when you described them, they were only held for limited periods of time. So I think yoga was one example. There was an anxiety management example that you gave that was for 2 marking periods. Is this the fact that these are one-offs, that is, they have a beginning and an end and they're very short duration, is that because that's all we need? Or is that a resource issue? Or why are we only doing anxiety management groups for 2 marking periods?
Well, with it being my first year, it was a matter of getting in, establishing a caseload, getting the referrals in place. For this year coming up, it will start earlier and most likely run throughout the course of the year. Maybe with some of the same students, maybe putting in some new students as it goes through. But usually the sessions are 8 weeks long. So we could, 8 to 10 weeks depending, so we could be repeating that throughout. It was just that with my first year being in and not really having a caseload when I first walked in the door, it was a little delayed at that point.
Okay, so it's just a combination of startup time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Combined with, these are actually, for any individual student, these are programs that you anticipate they'll be in year long. You would do your yoga for 10 weeks.
Right.
And then you'd have other students cycling in. Is that?
Well, for yoga, yeah, I mean, we would, you know, as long as we can fill however many students that the instructor could accommodate, and that was open school-wide, so that was anybody, that wasn't just case managed
Right.
students, that wasn't a referral, where the groups are, it's a little more specialized, a little more students with specific needs, so those are only students that are referred through the counseling office. They may be CIS case managed students, or maybe a student that a counselor just thought that they would benefit from the group.
And Ms. Cole, you had mentioned, I mean, you had referred earlier to the fact that the recommendation for this program a year ago was only partially adopted. This board, because of resource constraints, only took a piece of it. What I remember from that, and refresh me if I'm misremembering this, but my memory is that there was a pretty clear depiction of the need versus what we could actually provide in that presentation. In this presentation, I heard you say that we still have these outstanding needs, but it wasn't nearly as concrete to me sort of where we are relative to need. And so I wonder if you could speak to, so now that we have a year of this program under the belt of the district, if we were to meet 100% of the needs of the community, what would it take to do that from where we're standing now?
An infinite amount of resources, quite honestly. I mean, what you see is the increase in population within the high school alone. Okay, so we're talking about more students, as well as you see the climate of society and what's happening in schools around us. So I think the more eyes that we can continue to have on students, and the more ears that we can continue to have in the building, and really that relationship building, which is so key and crucial in identifying the early warning signs. I think, again, the more people we can put in, whether it be through communities and schools, or an increase in the number of school counselors in the school district, an increase in the number of the school psychologists, and I know I'm reaching pie in the sky right now, but I think that we cannot have enough resources like that to make sure that we are trying to reach every single student in this building, and in all the buildings within the district, to make sure that we can hopefully head off any type of situation that could potentially tragedy that could occur here.
Okay, well, so let me, I hear what you're saying. I mean, as you know, we don't have infinite resources.
Absolutely.
So maybe I'll ask the question, I think it's the same question, just asked a different way, which is, what guidance would you give us as a board to help adjudicate, right, and balance resources in this program with all of the other competing things that we need to look at, right? Like how do we know that we're doing as good a job as we can?
Well, I think the next step would be to expand the program to the middle levels and to have a resource within those buildings, because again, you're hitting students at an earlier age, as well as that transition process. Tammy has spoken to it on more than one occasion within our core team meetings, that it's a really nice transition when students are case managed at the middle school to continue that level of support up through the high school, and there's great success rates in doing so. So I think if I'm answering your question correctly, or the way you intended it to be, the next steps in my mind would be to expand the program, and I mean, with the hope of putting one site coordinator in each of the middle schools. But obviously, if budgetary constraints exist, that can't happen. I don't know if there's a way to share a site coordinator, although I do think that would limit the work that a site coordinator would be able to do if they had to split their time between buildings. It's a slow process. But we're going to continue, hopefully through communities and schools. There are other things that we've talked about at the elementary level, bringing in mindfulness lessons into certain buildings in the district to kind of help alleviate some of the concerns at the elementary level. So I think it's a district-wide need, but I think it's a partnership between the board and also internal resources that we're really looking at how we can better allocate our internal resources to make sure everybody feels like they have a piece of the puzzle here.
And maybe, I think this is my last question. I'll come back to where I started. I must be missing something, because so that seems very reasonable to me, to sort of go to the middle school, but yet it's belied by if it is true that the best outcomes happen with the earliest interventions, why are we starting at the latest interventions at the high school with the next step that we would like to do at the middle school, and we're waiting the place where if I understand you correctly, the place that we can have the most impact is in the elementary schools, but we're saving that for last.
Absolutely. Jump in and hopefully I can answer your question. So if you recall, when we first presented all of the behavior information district-wide, we really had to prioritize because we knew we couldn't have it all. So the greatest need was really at the high school. They were experiencing a lot of mental health crises, a lot of suicide ideation. So when we looked at that population, we really felt as though communities and schools needed to go there first. And then if you recall, we kind of traded off. We did not put a communities and schools representative at the middle level, but we have another psychologist. So now we have a psychologist at each middle level. The other thing that we did for elementary, all of the schools went through positive behavior support training at the IU. I think there's one school left that's going this school year. And so we really made a commitment to training staff to handle some of those needs and learn some interventions for our younger students. In addition to that, there was West Coastville this year that applied for a grant, and they received grant money. And so they implemented mindfulness training at their school. So, you know, it's not like we're kind of ignoring the needs. We really are trying to be very fiscally responsible to everyone to try to kind of think outside the box and, you know, put supports in place until we can add some additional CIS supports.
Great. Well, thank you both. Thank all three
You're
of you
welcome.
for your presentation. I appreciate it.
Building on those thoughts, are there other schools in the Lehigh Valley that have implemented full CIS starting at the K level? And if so, what does that look like? Kind of what form does it take? How many people? Other things like that?
So Wendy, the Director of Operations for Lehigh Valley, really has that global perspective. So I'll step away and
communities and schools that Lehigh Valley started implementing, we have a feeder pattern primarily in Allentown because we are in elementary schools, middle schools, and the high schools. Our most experiences at the middle school and high school level, and we just started the case management intervention ISS model at 2 elementary schools last school year during the 15-16 school year. So those case management services are currently in the elementary school at 2 schools in Allentown. And we also offer the community school model, which is a United Way funded program, but it doesn't involve the case managed services or that tier 3, that 1-to-1 case manages in any other district currently.
So that's only been a year or 2 that's been in place?
2 years at Central Elementary School in Allentown.
And at a high level, what does the data look like on those early interventions?
Really good academic data. Behavior challenges, because of the resources, are limited. The academic data is, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't have it in front of me, but we're pleased with the progress that the students at Central Elementary are making in some of our hard work.
But it's going to take 4, 5, 8 more years until you really have that.
Yeah, the challenge in Allentown, and just, you know, its transparency, is the mobility issue. So we're often comparing apples to oranges to cranberries from year to year, but, you know, progress we're seeing is positive.
Does the national communities and schools have longitudinal data on those early interventions that have gone all the way through high school?
I'd have to get it. I'd have to pull and see what they have at the elementary level for sure. Most of their studies, I believe, currently have been done at the middle school and high school level because that's where most of our work has been done.
So
But
I
there's some.
don't need you to pull that up. It's something that as we go through this process.
Yeah, certainly. I can make sure that you guys get that information and the data and what our studies show.
Any more comments? Mr. Champagne?
Yes. Just on page 16, you kind of talk about your end of year results. And I mean, the percentages, to me, there's just numbers on the page. And I really Tell me a little bit more about how you feel like, when you say 60% in an academic priority, is that a good start? Is that an expected outcome? What is this really telling us? Is this, where do you want this? Obviously, 100% would be ideal, but what are you trying to? Where are you trying to get to?
Well, we would love to have 100%,
Right.
but I was pretty pleased with the results for it being the first year, and like I said, the caseload not being established right at the beginning of the school year. Some students coming in halfway through the year, that type of thing. But generally, if you look, and again, like Wendy said, sometimes it's we're comparing apples to oranges with the the different demographics and the different needs. But for the most part, if you look at results throughout the Lehigh Valley, it was kind of right in the middle of where it is. Schools that have been consistently in a school district, site coordinators have been in a district for a period of time, maybe six or 7 years. Consistently, they tend to obviously show the higher results, maybe 70, 80, 90% in that range. But for it being the first year, I felt pretty good. I mean, obviously we'd all love to have 100%, but that's what we strive for.
Are the goals the same throughout all of these districts? If you look at goals in Allentown versus goals in Parkland or goals wherever you serve.
Right.
So we're comparing apples and apples, not comparing.
Right. For case managed students, the goals are always academic, behavioral, and attendance. Those are the three things that we look at. And I sit down with students, and sometimes students and their families, and we talk about what goals are needed for that particular student based on their particular need. So it's very structured for each particular student. In addition to that, like I said, we have the social emotional. But when we look at the results, we have our I'm trying to put this in. We have the goals that it depends on, like I said, on the student, basically. And then, did I answer that? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you did. I mean, again, it kind of gives me, all right, so
the goals are always the same. It just depends on who the student is. Some of them have all three goals. The school-wide goals can be different. They can be different from year to year at each school, but within the same school, they can be different. They can be different throughout each school, depending on what the need is, through that needs assessment.
Just one additional question. I seem to recall when we were talking about this program, one of the benefits, and maybe I don't recall it correctly, was some follow-up or some programs in the summer. And what has happened with that, or where does that, there was...
I don't know that we talked about programs in the summer. We talked about the site coordinator working throughout the summer to work with the students that were on the caseload. So in other words, they wouldn't kind of be
Well, that's what I meant.
dropped.
They're not dropped. So there is contact with these students that are in her caseload during the summer period.
I reach out to the families through within the summer in order to get the consents for the following year. And at that time, it's a check-in. But do I have any ongoing?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to...
We don't run programs during the summer, so I don't know that was...
Okay, maybe it was just that.
Yeah, that we would continue to follow up with the families so that the services there'd be a continuity of service. So
Okay.
in other words, the students wouldn't be dropped if they were in
Well, that's what, yeah,
the
that's
program,
what, right.
correct.
Okay.
Just going back to the data and the report, the one thing that we will receive from Communities in Schools is a very detailed report of our data. And so I don't know if you recall, they had shared Easton Area High School's data book with us. So we should be receiving something like that.
In the fall.
Yeah, I was going to say August. So I will make sure that, you know, you get that copy, or each board member will get a copy of that information.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to reiterate a point that Mrs. Cole had made about the collaborative effort. And I think the overall success that you shared with us this evening really is a result of a strong collaborative effort between communities and schools, the school district, particularly the high school, counseling department, and the Office of Special Education. And I think communities and schools brings to us that solid research base, interventions, tiered levels of support, but most importantly, our on-site coordinator, Tammy Patterson, who's just been a phenomenal asset to us and really has just become a member of our high school team. So thank you to communities and schools, thank you to Tammy as well as Jen and Linda for your presentation tonight.
I'd also like to extend my thanks and also thank you for progress you made on the first year.
Thank you. Thank you all for your support.
Next on the agenda is the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. I want to begin by extending my appreciation to the school community for their support of me in my transition over the past several weeks from my former position as assistant superintendent to superintendent. And while the past several weeks have been relatively quiet from the perspective that our amazing 8,000 students are not with us right now, we are busy planning for the upcoming school year. So I have two brief items that I'd like to provide the community and the board an update on. The first of which is full day kindergarten. As you know, we are very anxious for the implementation of universal full day kindergarten for students in East Penn beginning in August of 2018 for the upcoming school year. And a committee of teachers and district and building administrators have been planning for that implementation for the upcoming year. And I just want to give you a bit of a timeline of some of the events that we have planned, really beginning back in April, throughout the months of April and May. I'm happy to say that we have filled all of our full-day kindergarten positions, many of which have been filled with existing East Penn teachers, and then we also are welcoming some new teachers to the East Penn teaching family. In May of 2018, once we have identified who our kindergarten teaching staff would be throughout the month of May, we did offer several professional development sessions for our kindergarten teachers, focusing on first and foremost the philosophy of our program, and then also including those teachers and looking at some of the curricular and programmatic changes that will come about with the full day program. In June of 2018, we ordered all of our instructional materials and resources that will be needed for our program for the upcoming year. And just recently, in July of 2018, we have finalized all of our room placements, and we've ordered furniture and some of the other resources that our teachers will need. And we talked about a renovation of a space, a learning space at Lincoln Elementary, and I'm happy to say that that renovation is well underway and going well. And as we continue throughout the summer months, we will meet with our full-day kindergarten teachers and again continue that professional learning experience, not just in the month, but not just in the summer months, that will continue throughout the school year as well, as we begin to implement revised curriculum, pacing guides, and get feedback from our teachers in terms of, are we continue to be aligned to our philosophy of the program, and how is that curriculum map working for us, and what adjustments need to be made. In this August, we will invite our kindergarten students and their parents for a kindergarten orientation. We do send out a notification to each of our new kindergarten families inviting them to that event. It's a great opportunity for, again, students and parents to meet the kindergarten teacher, learn about the program, hear about the schedule. They get to take a tour of their building, and we even provide them with a bus ride so that they get to experience what it's like to ride on a bus. So again, we are looking forward to really a successful first year for our program, and I want to extend a tremendous thank you to the committee of dedicated East Penn teachers and administrators who have been working really hard this past spring.
The other piece that I wanted to talk about, while the majority of our students are not with us over the summer, we do have some of our special education students who qualify for extended school year services. And these services help our students continue to work towards their IEP goals. And our district's extended school year, or ESY services, began the week of July 2nd, and they will run through August 2nd. And we have ESY programs at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. And we provide high-quality instructional programs for approximately 240 students. And so again, I just want to recognize the collaborative effort that it takes to offer such a high-quality program, including our teachers, our administrators, our special ed department, obviously, our transportation office as well, to make that ESY program successful for all of our students. So thank you, and that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Campbell? Okay, moving on, I have a motion for personnel with the addendum to section B and N.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Mr. Ballard? Mr. Ballard's not here, I apologize. Ms. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Flanders?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Dr. Wagner?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Yes,
I'd like to recognize, as part of the personnel that was just approved, we have 2 administrators who in the very near future will be leaving East Penn. The first of whom is Mr. Mark Zimmerman, and he resigned his position as Assistant Athletic Director. And he's been serving East Penn in that role for the past 2 years. And prior to that, he had been a teacher in the Bethlehem Area School District. And we wish him continued success as he now pursues and continues his leadership role to serve as the Director of Athletics in the Southern Lee High School District. So we certainly wish him the best in that new role. And I also wanted to take a moment to recognize another special member of our East Penn family who will be retiring this summer, Dr. Denise Torma. Denise began her career at East Penn in 1991, first as an assistant principal. At the time, it was Iyer Junior High, and she continued her role as an assistant principal then at Emmaus High School, and she also served as an acting principal at Emmaus High School as well. And following her great work at the building level, Denise served then as a member of the central office team where she's been since 2001. Her affinity for research and her attention to detail served her well in her first position at central office, which was Director of Research and Evaluation, and she held that role for 4 years. And then in 2005, she was recognized for her leadership and moved on to the position of Assistant Superintendent. And as many of the board members know, our community as well, Denise has been pivotal in implementing the district's dashboard, which is an online tool that summarizes a wealth of demographic, academic, financial information on our school district. Denise also organized the district's eFolio, which is a comprehensive online portfolio system for each of our 10 buildings, as well as our overall school district. She's facilitated numerous comprehensive planning processes and helped to formalize professional development for our building leaders. Outside of her work in East Penn, she's very active in the Middle States Commission. She's done committee work at the state level, and she's also very active in the Alumni Association at Moravian College. And over the past 8 years, I'm honored to say that I've had the pleasure of working closely with Denise. And I think anyone who has worked with her in that close capacity would agree that they admire her work ethic and integrity, her passion for public education, and without a doubt, her sincere commitment to students and staff of this school community that she so loyally served for 27 years. She's been a loyal colleague and friend to me and to East Penn, and on behalf of the school community, I wish her continued health, happiness, and success in her retirement.
items in the business operations together. You do have a,
Could we take D separately?
okay. And I have a motion. Contracts and agreements. And I have a motion for A through C under business operations.
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Allison, call the roll.
Mr. Byrd? Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Flanders?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Baumann? Aye. Dr. Butler?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion passes. Do you have a specific item you'd like to take out, or?
I actually really just have a few questions about 2 different contracts.
Yeah, we have a motion on D1. Just questions?
I think so.
Okay, motion on, sorry, contacts and agreements.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
So on Exhibit 9, the Communities and Schools one, I thought it might be beneficial if we defined what at-risk is, since it could theoretically mean anything. So at-risk students, including, I don't know what the legal definition is, to be honest.
Where are you?
Oh, it's Exhibit 9. It's under the provider, third line, and it says identified students considered at risk.
You're suggesting defining what at-risk.
Yeah.
Wendy, can you answer that question?
I don't want to misquote or define it out of legal terms, but we define at-risk as students who present with behavior challenges, attendance challenges, academic challenges. They could be part of a subgroup that is lower performing. They could have a socioeconomic background. Those risk factors, the more risk factors they have, they're at more potential of dropping out of high school.
So these students are at risk of dropping out of high school due to a variety of risk factors.
Yeah, the variety of risk factors could include everything from pre-reduced lunch status, special education identification. It could be parents who are incarcerated. If there's family issues in the home, we utilize a variety of. It could be gang involved. There's numerous risk factors that present when we talk about students who are at risk, and we usually identify those through our individual support process and work with the guidance team to identify if they are truly at risk. But I don't know the legal definition.
Well, that's what, I guess what I was wondering is if we're asking them to do a certain thing with a group of students, but we're not defining what the group of students is, there's no way to measure whether it's been done. That's why I was asking for a definition of it in the legal contract, if that makes sense.
But it does, but I suggest we keep the language as is, because at risk, well, can be considered a legal term, is also somewhat subjective. It's at risk to pretty much everything she just said and everything you just saw on the slides.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're talking about. So to encapsulate that into a word or two, a sentence, I'm not sure would be beneficial. I'm more concerned if we forget something.
I got you.
That's, so if you're more inclusive, it's better than us. I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I have a question on a different contract. I don't, if you,
I do want to, again, I should have mentioned this way, there are some corrections on this particular contract, typos. 60 was 60 calendar days, I'm sorry, on the third page. Item 6, it had 30 in text and 60 in the number, and it should be 60. And at the end of that page, notices to the district
Yeah, I just have a, in the description of the services, it says the provider shall implement the community school integrated student support model. And I guess what struck me is that that should be appended to the contract, because that's the actual services that we're getting. And I didn't see that as part of the agreement. And I think if we're going to enter into an agreement that says this is what the service they're going to provide, I think we should know and have that part of the agreement.
Is there any issue taking that from the presentation?
No, the infographic that was up?
Well, however you define, or if there's a document that defines what your model is, I think that's what the district is purchasing from your organization. And to me, it should be clear, and we should know, and the public should know exactly what it is. And that's something I think we should have as an appendix to.
Can we go ahead on this? Or do you have anything, or should we pull this out?
No, I think there's some more, all of D is before the board right now.
I understand, I'm saying, do we have to pull this out? We can vote on this and then add the appendix.
Well, yeah, we'll just add, you can ask for a friendly amendment for those adjustments and that appendix that you added. You've seen a lot of that.
Yeah. Any other comments?
It's still on communities in school, and must stay the same.
It's on a different.
Okay, mine is on the next. Should I still keep going, or should I?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't sure. So the Hogan Learning Academy one's Exhibit 10. So it's my understanding that this Learning Academy is a for-profit private school, and I was kind of stunned by the amount of money that it costs, $400 per day. That's actually per year more than Columbia University or any Ivy League school. And I know that we have no, I guess, there's nothing we can do about these costs, or it's not so much a question. I understand this is a state mandate and we agree to whatever, but are there things we can do to mitigate costs like this? And that's an extra teacher could be.
Dr. Clark, do you mind addressing the contract? So you are correct, it is for a specialized program that we can't offer, that we don't offer, obviously, here in East End.
So I can tell you, Hogan Academy is a center-based program for our school for autistic students. The costs that you're seeing are very comparable to what we pay for an IU program for an autistic student. So the cost is in alignment. The one student that is placed at the school was there last year because there was not room at the IU, and so we had to contract with this facility. However, there is another student that is kind of displaying the same types of behaviors and the same needs. And so it was agreed to, instead of going to an IU program, that we would use this center-based program. But I can assure you the costs are comparable to what we pay for the IU.
Yeah, mine follows directly on that. There's two things that make me really uncomfortable about all three of these Hogan contracts. One is the cost, which Ms. Bowman already brought up and helpfully did the math to compare to Columbia and something like that. But the other is, I mean, this is a boilerplate contract that says we will give them a large amount of money, and it says almost nothing about what they will give us, except they will provide services that they can. And if they can't, then they won't. And so how can we and how can the public know what we're paying for?
So I can tell you this, we still remain to be the LEA, so the local educational agency for these students. So we are still responsible for their IEP. We attend every meeting. We are with them as they draw up the IEP, so to speak, and so the district is in agreement with the services. So again, I can assure you that we sit at that table with the parent and with the folks at Hogan Academy to make sure that they are providing the services as dictated in the IEP.
And is this a residential facility?
It's not a residential, it's a day program.
And why is the contract written on a per-day basis rather than what we're actually going to pay?
So we have the cost per year, we just did it per day. I can certainly get you, the exact cost for the entire program.
And does the district have, are there competing or alternative providers? Or do they have a monopoly on providing this service?
I can say that there are not a lot of center-based autistic programs in the Lehigh Valley. Typically, we use the IU program. However, for some students, even that is not a level of support that is conducive to what the student needs. So this agency actually has behavior support personnel. It's almost like a 3-to-1 ratio, so 3 people to 1 student.
Okay. I mean, this is no disrespect to the search procedure that you've gone through, but I mean, I guess I take Ms. Bowman's point to heart in that even if we could save a fraction of the costs for these 2 students from Hogan, this one provider, that would pay for us to provide communities and schools to hundreds of students that need. And
I understand that. I understand that. And I can tell you as well, I don't take these placements lightly. It really is through expending everything that we can do in the district to support the student. And so there are only 2 students in the entire district that are at Hogan Academy right now.
And do you do just to go back to my concern about the fact that this contract promises almost nothing to the district, how is it that you evaluate whether or not they're doing what we expect them to do and what we're paying them to do?
So,
if there's no contract to make a determination of that.
So within the IEP, the student has goals, they have specially designed instruction, and so there is a monitoring process through the IEP process. And so we receive quarterly progress reports, we receive communication, from the teacher, from the parent, that they're implementing the IEP with fidelity.
Okay, thank you.
So, I don't remember who.
Paul Champagne and Adam Smith.
Are you open to a friendly amendment to put the CIS model in the first contract?
Yes.
And amend it? So, can you call the roll on the amended motion?
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Allen?
Aye.
Ms. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Flanders?
Aye.
Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion passes. Curriculum, can I have a motion on education conference?
So moved.
Any discussion? Call the roll.
Ms. Baumann? Aye. Mr. Byrd?
Aye.
Mr. Champagne?
Aye.
Mr. Flanders?
Aye.
Dr. Munson?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye.
Ms. Allen? Aye. Dr. Bacher?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Motion passes. Moving on to policy. I think this is the first reading. We're going to do one by one. So on the first policy 210.1,
No, I don't, sorry.
any input from the board?
Actually, this isn't input, this is a question about this whole packet. It's the first time under the number, you've had volume numbers and year numbers. Is this a change in how we're labeling everything, or? Like, why is this 210.1 volume 3 2018? And does that differ from 2010.1?
Dr. Storm, are you able to answer that regarding the labeling?
The labels that you have for the policies are actually from PSBA because they're new policies, or some are revised policies. We can omit them if you choose. I just used what we got from PSBA. They came from the PNN, which is the network information that we get to revise policies on a, I'm not going to even say a quarterly basis. It depends when they have enough policies to send out a PNN.
And is this how it's going to show up to the public on the
No.
online board?
No, that won't show up on there. We can omit that, not a problem.
So, Dr. Corman, this is the policy, ongoing policy review that they say legal status has changed or something, that you
Yes.
should review these policies.
Since we updated the policy manual, there will be additional policies that will come out that either through legal, the change in PA code, or through Every Student Succeeds Act and our obligations to fulfill those responsibilities. Policies will be updated on an occasional basis.
And this volume 3, this is the third time the SBA has released the PNN
For this year, yes. If it's the wish of the board, we can omit from this point forward with the volume number.
Oh, I don't care.
It's not a problem.
Yeah, I just wanted to understand.
I think this is helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, policy 210, volume 3, 2018, on 200 pupils. Page 3, under 6. It's saying that there has to be a written acknowledgement from the student that they received instruction from the student's physician about the inhalers. But what if the student's like in kindergarten and can't write yet? Like, it seems like there's many cases where it would be impossible to make this happen.
I might ask Dr. Mirabella if you could speak to that, but I do know there is a portion in the policy as well where it references with regard to if it's the student's age and or maturity. There was a portion about age being a consideration as to whether or not a student could even carry in itself.
Oh,
Yeah. Do you have a further explanation, Dr. Mirabella?
That's correct.
Okay.
The doctor and the school nurse, along with the parent, have to make all three decisions whether the student is of age and ability to self-administer and
I guess, I appreciate, that you have to update. What triggered this particular update? In terms of what triggered there's a lot of changes to this policy in terms of, the application, is the fact that the district will now stock these auto injectors. What was the triggering event, or is it a code change? Is it, what really prompted this drastic overhaul of this policy?
I'm not certain that we know exactly what prompted. Dr. Torman, do you have any further information regarding what may have prompted a particular policy change through PSBA?
Because my daughters carry these things, and I'm just curious why.
It would be a change in the state code, and also if you look at it under on page 1 of 4, at the bottom of the legal citations, it says Pennsylvania Department of Health guidance, and that also prompts the changes.
Okay, so that was probably the triggering event. Okay. And so now all districts are allowed to stock these, my understanding, these auto injectors, and we're going to have to develop the policies, administrative regulations, and training for all of
And
the.
we currently do.
Okay.
Yes, we have stopped EpiPens.
Oh, we have, okay.
For at least the last 10 years that I've been involved, we have stopped them. We can get them through a prescription for our school district doctor. We do have EpiPen juniors for the students that are under 60 pounds, and we have full EpiPens for students that are over 60 pounds, and it also covers any visitors, and we do monitor them. We do have sign-offs. We do have physicians' directions on administration of it. We do have training. We also have web-based training in which a layperson that is allowed by law to administer one of these has to demonstrate proficiency to the school nurse to sign off. and that entire program is administered through the Office of Student
Yeah,
Services.
my daughters have, they bring their own in and they just have them, the nurse, whatever the procedure is for them to carry them. That's,
Yes.
I didn't realize that they were stopped.
But if one of those failed, or the student needed a second dose within the 15 minutes because they were not reacting appropriately, and they either stopped breathing or had labored breathing, we would have them on hand to administer, underneath the guidance of our school district doctor, a second dose until the EMS arrived.
Thank you.
Any other comments on this? Moving on to policy 810.
No.
Comments from board?
I think I'm on the right one, because this is 810.3, right? This is just a small, under definitions, we're taking out means, and the other ones, they put in like a hyphen or something to take its place. There's twice there, school bus, and then it should be hyphen, and then motor vehicle, blah, 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 and then the next thing, school vehicle, right before the definition, it needs that little hyphen mark. I have a question written here, but it's gonna take me a while to figure out what I wanted to ask, so go on to somebody else.
On the top of page 3, it says you're to report all accidents, incidents, as soon as practicable. That's fairly vague. Is there any timing expectation on that, like the next business day, 24 hours, something like that, or is it as soon as practicable, good enough for this level?
I believe the bus drivers actually have to fill out reports at the end of it and complete those reports at the end of their workday.
Yes, at the end of each one of the bus runs, if there's an incident, so if it's a morning run after midday, you won't have it anymore, or a afternoon run, when the driver returns back, regardless of whether their shift is done or not, that discipline referral, if it's a discipline referral or an incident referral, is filed, and then that incident referral is sent to both myself and also to the building liaison and building principal for obviously handling. If it is a serious incident which rises to the level of law enforcement needing to be notified, I am immediately notified. The bus driver many times will radio in, and then as soon as possible will actually call in the incident, and then the incident is referred right back to me.
Should that language be clarified to say just exactly what you said at the end of the run or at the end of the shift or something like that? It says, let me right then.
We'll take a look at that, but my initial thought is no, because it may be because of, heaven forbid, something unfortunate, it can't be done at the We'll take a look at it.
And then under student health information, since we've just finished the policy on evidence and everything else, are school bus drivers allowed to give medication like that? Do they hold that, or do they just hold that confidentiality in medical records?
The school bus drivers do not administer anything, one of two reasons. Number one is they're never supposed to leave the actual operation of the school bus, so they wouldn't be able to attend medically to the student by being able to provide supervision and also safety on the road, going off the road, things like that. They're trained to immediately call 911, and we've had those instances in the past where the ambulance will meet the bus, and myself or another district administrator will go out and meet the bus at the same time.
That's part of the training, so it's not worth putting in the policy.
Correct. And also the student health information, they're bus cards, basically, we have, and the parent so chooses, we send out one every year to the parents, and they so choose to decide what information they want to have on that card, and then that card is made available to the bus driver and substitutes whoever's providing transportation service of what that condition is and what that information is.
They're required to keep that information.
Yes, they are.
Yes, under page 3, under item number 3, it says providing school bus driver, vehicle driver with, and then item D, board policies, administrative regulations to supply. Should those be listed here, or are they, what are the additional things that we provide?
Dr. Mirabel, are you aware of any board policies policies that we provide to our bus drivers as of this point?
I'm not.
Let's follow up on that.
Yeah. Or any, or admin regs.
Yeah, my question is right below that on evacuation drills. Do we do bus evacuation drills now? And do those involve students, or is that just a?
By law, we're required to do 2 bus evacuations a year, once a semester. We actually do those with students, and we show the students, through a process that is vetted and also overseen by the safety manager of the of our transportation provider. And we do actually do those as mandated by law. And then I do the report at the end of the year with actual dates, evacuation times, who was involved, when it happened, where it happened, and things like that.
So, I mean, this is listed as new in the policy, but this is our past practice. It's just being inscribed in the policy now. Okay, thank you.
Is that 2 in the whole district, or is it 2 per bus, or?
No, we do it twice a year on all levels, elementary, middle, and high school. So basically, once a semester, we have evacuation drills on all of our buses. Right. And but we try to scatter them, we don't do them all at once.
It's only peripheral to the policy for the authority. I was just wondering, what is the farthest we're taking students, I assume, to outside of East Penn School District? What's the farthest we have buses going, and how few students are on those buses?
10 miles.
Go ahead. I mean, it says 10 miles. I'm just curious where this is, where we're going.
For some of our students that actually attend out of placement, district out of placement facilities, day programs, it's a lot longer than 10 miles.
Okay.
But the 10 miles radius basically is for those non-public students that we transport, or by law that we're required to transport.
Yeah.
Okay, it's 10 miles from the district boundary, north, south, east, and west, not counting through the.
So, I mean, so we're talking like Allentown, but not East. I guess that's geographically. I was just trying to figure out what that means.
Alternative setting where a student goes is in Easton or is in Bethlehem.
Yeah.
Yes, we provide that transportation because we're required to. But as far as a non-public school, we stay within the 10-mile radius.
Policy 810.1.
I was curious, you have one for school bus drivers and school commercial vehicle drivers, and then you also have one for, the next policy has to do with school vehicles. Is there a reason they're not one policy or both? Because it seems like the one for school bus drivers and commercial vehicle drivers is much more inclusive, much more restrictive of the.
I would guess that's their job. The other one are probably teachers that are driving a small number of kids. But I don't know. Maybe you should.
The reason why they are separated out is because under Pennsylvania law, school bus drivers are held to higher standards with certain requirements and certain licenses that they have to have, as opposed to licenses for school district, like air brake. You need an air brake endorsement for driving a certain school bus. We don't have vehicles that have those air brake endorsements and different things like that. And then there's different policies and procedures, including safety policies and procedures, that are mandated by a commercial carrier that are not mandated by a school district employee providing transportation through the use of a school vehicle.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess there's sprinkled throughout the policy, you go back and forth between drug use and controlled substances. And I'm just wondering, is that, logic to that, and why sometimes we talk about drug use, and sometimes we talk about controlled substances. There's something that you should be looking at.
There is a reason why we'll double check.
And then vignette that I have on page 101, definition, going with the convention, we've done that. I think we should just say it should be covered driver, hyphen, and then any district employee. And then on page 3 of 7, another net, halfway down the page, it says, use a handheld, use of a handheld, mobile telephone, or other.
Where is this?
I think it's a definition. Use a handheld.
Okay, all right.
Okay, that's what
All right, very much. And the last thing I had is there something special about Canada? On page 5 or 7.
I'm assuming that comes from.
There's a citation there.
5 of 7. It's under reporting requirements. It's 1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph down, and 5th paragraph down.
So on page 5, we have different types of medicines and drugs mentioned in different ways. Like, let's see, under reporting requirements, the 3rd paragraph, they simply tell you if they're using something that, causes marked drowsiness. That doesn't necessarily say whether or not they can drive while they're taking that medicine. And then under controlled substances, it pulls out medical marijuana and hemp, but doesn't list a whole bunch of other medicines that would be incredibly detrimental to someone, for instance, opioids or Ambien. And I'm just wondering if we should list a lot more there or look at what's listed where.
They're confusing with the other one. Isn't there some requirement they have physician saying they can operate?
Excuse me, could we please hear what you're saying? Could you please use your microphones? Because we're here to listen, but we can't hear you.
Interest, we'll take a look at it. What you have here is a combination of state laws and federal laws. Some of their terms don't match. We're going to take a look at it.
Again, could you use the microphone?
That's part of the reason.
Mr. Fisher said there's a combination of state laws and federal laws. And we'll take a look. Any other comments?
Under the definitions of a covered driver, my understanding is we currently contract out our bus services. Are those contractors covered by the phrase leased drivers? Because I'm pretty sure they don't qualify as independent owner operated contractors.
I don't think that's.
Yes, so I'm sorry, on page 2 on the definitions, a covered driver shall include all sorts of things. And it includes drivers, mechanics, full-time regularly employed leased drivers. And I'm wondering what the definition of a leased driver is.
At the lease driver, at times there's a shortage of drivers for your independent contractor, whether it be the IU who's providing transportation or STA that's providing transportation. They in turn can develop a sublease, if you want to say, or lease drivers from another organization, lease drivers from an over-the-road motor coach that have those proper endorsements that are needed, and it covers those drivers as well. So there's like drivers, substitute drivers that are STA employees, lease drivers that can be pulled in from another entity as long as they have all the proper certifications and endorsements that are necessary to drive school bus.
And are all the drivers we currently have employed as school district
Yes,
employees?
last year I believe there was 2 lease drivers in the beginning of the year until those individuals could get their medical certification completed, because sometimes that takes a little bit longer because they were both from out of state. So they were already employees, but they weren't certified, nor were they board approved yet. So we had 2 lease drivers in the very beginning of the year. And they were just quickly
those jobs were assumed by the regular employee.
Yeah, so my concern was that we were contracting out, that wasn't covered, but it sounds like that is not the case, so that's great. On page 3 of 7, down near the bottom, the board prohibits covered drivers from texting using a handheld mobile telephone. If there's any way that we can make that completely emphatic, that do not do this at all under that exception, bold, flashing lights, something like that, just so that that continues to be part of the training, we just don't do that. And then I couldn't quite follow on page 6 the alcohol test results. There were a lot of numbers thrown around, a lot of timing, and this may be what Mr. Fisher was saying about state and federal law kind of being mangled together to form something that you can't really understand well. But so like on consequences, discipline, is this that we do random alcohol tests and that they can't test over .04 or higher at any point in time that we have to find them? Or is it that, they show up and we test them every time they show up or something else? And then there's something about that the driver's shift starting 24 hours following administration of the test, that they can't be between .02 and .04, which is generally that 1 or 2 drink. So I couldn't quite follow, obviously the statements that somewhere else that says you're not allowed to have any alcohol at all when you're operating a school bus, which is good. But the other part here, I'm not sure when the tests happen, how they get administered, other stuff like that. It was not clear to me as I was reading through this. So I don't know if there's anything we can do to help clarify what happens and when to those alcohol tests.
Moving on to school vehicle drivers, 810.3.
No changes.
Any more questions or comments?
Kind of mirroring the same stuff on page 3 of 3 near the top. The school vehicle driver shall not report after consuming alcohol or controlled substance within the previous 8 hours, which doesn't say anything about the level or intensity. So I don't know if there's something that can be included in there that kind of mirrors the commercial, because I don't want anybody, not that I believe that they would, but I don't want anybody showing up having had a really fabulous Sunday night.
I think this is probably from statute, I know.
Yeah.
For example, airline pilots are not allowed to have consumed anything in the 8 hours before they begin flying. But I just look at that, get clarification. Any other comments? Moving on to 818, contracted services personnel.
No changes.
From the board? Myers?
Until I have fun reading the policies. On employment history review down at the bottom of page 2, there's a section on that the district is allowed to object to any sexual misconduct background questions or anything like that. But it doesn't mirror that language in the criminal history. I didn't know if that was something that was allowed or not allowed. There's been a lot of news about people being able to ask or not being able to ask about criminal history. But I didn't know if the district would have that opportunity to review and object for some sort of criminal history.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it.
And then on the very last page in the middle, child abuse reporting, is this, do these contractors then fall under the mandated reporter statutes and laws? And if so, should we make that painfully obvious?
Can you repeat that section?
The very last page, child abuse reporting.
Thank you.
Stuff is hiding in that.
your suggestion to articulate that we?
That there are mandated reporter statutes and that there are penalties for not reporting. So it is obvious.
One of the citations is.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at it. Thank you for the suggestion.
Any other comments? Okay. We'll have discussion for the next reading, next meeting. Moving on to other educational entities, we have career and technical institute. Mr. Shannon.
Yes, the LCTI Joint Operating Committee met on June 27th. It was kind of a end of the year recognition of a number of key employees for their perfect attendance, recognition of retirees for many, of the long-standing employees at the LCTI. So I think he was, again, paying tribute to those people who had served the organization very well. There was also an update on the welding lab. Things are progressing well in terms of the permitting and the design phase, though I think there is some question, at least from my perspective, on the cost given the run-up in other raw materials and so forth. So they're going to be looking at that later in the fall and give us an update on that. Some good news, with the recent budget passed, there is additional money for secondary and technical education, and LCTI will be getting a benefit of that in terms of additional funding in their subsidy. It'll look to be about another $300,000 or so above budget, which I think, again, will go toward helping to promote some of the programs that they have been working on. There also appears to be federal funding. The Perkins program was approved by the Senate and the House and signed into law. So the Perkins funding, which is a big part of the budget for a number of the programs there, is also being funded to a larger extent. So I think some positive news for the budget for LCTI in the coming year. And that's my report.
Any questions for Mr. Champagne? Thank you. Next up is other items. The request has been withdrawn. Legislative. Mr. Ballard isn't here. Is there anyone that has any comments on legislative? Okay, moving forward, announcements. There was an executive session before the meeting today discussing negotiations and litigation. Our next board meeting will be on August 13th at 7:30 p.m. here. Is there anything else to come before the board? Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned.